I'm Warren Sharp of Sharp Football Analysis, and I hope this has become your favorite sports betting podcast this season. After all, we've done incredible for you on our best bets of the week, and this week's show hopefully is no different with the panel of experts that we have assembled to break down Conference Championship weekend. I can't believe it's here. 3 games left in the NFL this season, 2 of which are going to be played on Sunday. We're going to be breaking both of those games down in detail. First up, we're going to be talking about the AFC Championship between the New England Patriots and the Denver Broncos out in Denver. And last but not least, we're going to be talking about the NFC Championship with the LA Rams traveling up to Seattle, another road game for the road-weary LA Rams. They're going to be taking on Seattle Seahawks in Seattle on Sunday evening. 2 great games, a lot of great info to share with you. I cannot wait to get to it. Before we get into that, we're back with another $100 giveaway. Last week, Travis T was our $100 winner. Finally, somebody got it right. He picked Kyren Williams to score the first touchdown in the Rams versus Bears game. Comment below who you think scores the first touchdown in the Sunday night game between the Rams and Seahawks. And if you're right, we'll pick a winner to receive $100 added to their Novig account. Make sure you have a Novig account. If you don't, click the link in the description below to get a purchase match of up to $100 when you sign up. All right, I also want to mention real quick, last year for the Super Bowl, we had a very special episode of the show that all of you guys loved because you were able to submit your favorite Super Bowl prop. And we evaluated those props. Me and a team of sharks for the Shark Tank evaluated your props and selected the top props that we presented on the show. You were able to submit a video. Your video went right here on this podcast. We listened to it. Everybody was able to hear what you had to say in your favorite prop. And then we evaluated and we picked your favorite. We picked our favorite one from the bunch and awarded a prize to the first place finisher. We're going to be rolling that back again. Now, we're not even to the conference championship, so let's put it on the back burner. You don't have to do anything about this quite yet, but we're going to be giving you more information on how you can enter your favorite prop, record a video, get that video played right here on the Sharp Football Show. It's going to be a lot of fun. First up, let's start talking about some of these conference championship games. Let's talk NFC Championship game. We've got a rematch of a rematch for the LA Rams taking on the Seattle Seahawks, which would be a great game to close out the weekend. And look, there are a lot of things that are going up against the LA Rams in this game. Both of the teams played earlier this year twice. The Rams won the first meeting in Los Angeles. Seahawks won the second meeting in Seattle. But for this third meeting, there are a lot of things at play here. First of all, dome team playing outdoors in conference championship round. That has typically gone very poorly for the dome team. I want to say it's something like 0-15. 2-13 ATS for the dome team playing outdoors in the conference championship round. That's going to be a disadvantage for the LA Rams. That said, there is familiarity with this venue and the Rams. Obviously, it's going to feel a lot better playing in Seattle, ironically enough, even if it's only around 40 degrees, than it did a week ago playing in Chicago with the wind and the snow when it was 10 degrees. So they're still outdoors, but it is going to feel a lot better. And the Rams, there is something maybe to be said about the fact that they've been a little bit road tested as well as outdoor tested. They played in Carolina a couple of weeks ago. Then it got a lot colder in Chicago. Now it's going to get warmer, but still outdoors in Seattle. Not warm, but warmer, relatively speaking. Another thing is they're off of an overtime win. That is not easy, playing a game the very next week, having played overtime the week before while your opponent did not. And the last complicating factor here is they're on short rest compared to the Seahawks, who not only did Seattle have a bye and not have to travel for the only playoff game that they have played in the divisional round, but they played that game on a Saturday. The Rams played and beat the Chicago Bears Sunday night last week. So while yes, they do have 7 days to get ready for this game, it's still shorter rest than what the Seattle Seahawks had, and Seattle doesn't have to travel. They didn't have to travel to Chicago and then up to Seattle. They just stayed at home and woke up, played one game in the postseason, and now get to play second game against their foe. So those things are going to make it a little bit more challenging for the Rams as it compares to the Seattle Seahawks. Now, as I just mentioned, the Rams won the first game of the year. Seattle won the second game of the year. In the first game of the year, though, it was very different than how the second game ultimately played out. The first game of the year, the Rams were held to 249 yards of offense and a season-low 34% success rate. In the second game, the Rams had a season-high 581 yards of offense, over double what they had in the first game. And they had 6.6 yards per play, the second most in any game this season. So much better game for the Rams the second time around. In both games, however, even though it was split 1-1, the Rams held leads. The Rams led in the first game 14-9 at halftime. In the second game, the Rams led 13-7 at halftime. In the first game, the Rams led 14-12 through three quarters. In the second game, the Rams were up 30-14 with less than 15 minutes left in the last quarter of that game. They ended up losing that game as the Seahawks roared back and ended up winning with their offense going crazy and the 2-point conversion and all this other stuff we'll talk about with Joe momentarily. One of the biggest stories of those two meetings so far has been turnovers. The Rams turned the ball over just one time in two games. The Seahawks turned the ball over 7 times in two games, 4 in the first, 3 in the second. So the Seahawks need to figure out a way to be a little bit more careful, a lot more careful with the football, whereas the Rams have already been playing tight games with the Seahawks, not losing turnover battles whatsoever. There are a variety of things for the LA Rams that are making this handicap a little bit more complicated or challenging for me, because I'm not really sure what we're going to get out of this Rams offense in this game. Maybe that will make things more complicated and challenging for Mike McDonald, the defensive-minded head coach for the Seattle Seahawks as well. But the Rams were a team that specialized and focused a little bit more on utilizing 13 personnel at league high rates. But so far in their 2 playoff games, they've really gotten away from that. Now, we expected they would against the Carolina Panthers in the wild card round. We talked about it here. But in the divisional round, we expected them against the Bears to get right back to their bread and butter, spread the field with only one wide receiver at times, utilize more 3 tight end sets and 13 personnel, run the ball with Matthew Stafford going under center, and utilize a lot of play action. But first, let's talk about some of these personnel splits. The Rams were very pass heavy last week against the Chicago Bears, even though I did not understand why they were doing that, and they were not having a lot of success in doing that. They had one of their highest pass rates of the entire season, despite the fact that they never trailed at all except for 1 minute in the first 3 quarters. That means that they were tied or leading for 44 out of the first 45 minutes of the game, yet they were hardly running the football. They were using a ton of 11 personnel, and they ran only 7 plays out of 13 personnel last week against the Chicago Bears. They played 11 personnel on 90% of their snaps, their second highest rate of the season, and the highest rate of any game since week 5. So this team was really morphing into a 13 personnel team. And then all of a sudden in the postseason, they just pushed that to the side and are just looking like the 2021, 2022, 2023 Rams with nothing but 11 personnel out there on the field. Now, when the Rams played the Seahawks in the regular season, week 11, and then again in week 16, they used 13 personnel in 36% of their snaps, week 11, and all the way up to 62% of their snaps in week 16. So they massively leaned into the 13 personnel in their second meeting. And that's the meeting, if you remember my comment from earlier, where the Rams offense obliterated the Seattle Seahawks. The Rams offense posted well over 500 yards, the highest total in any game this year. They posted 6.6 yards per play. So they leaned into that 13 personnel and had a ton of success. But in the playoffs, they've abandoned the 13 personnel. Will Sean McVay go back to that? That remains to be seen. Another aspect to this has been Matthew Stafford's decline in usage of play action. Against the Bears, he utilized play action only 19% of the time, which is third lowest rate in any game this year. Against the Carolina Panthers the week before the wild card round, he utilized play action only 16% of the time. That was his second lowest rate of the year. He's had a ton of success using play action against the Seattle Seahawks, and he used play action more than anybody else during the regular season, used it at a league high 37% during the season. In the games against Seattle specifically, he used it 43% and 31% of the time. So these rates that he's used it over the last couple of weeks, I mean, very much a departure. Is Sean McVay going to lean back into the play action? Or are they going to stick with what they've been doing the last couple of weeks? That's a big time question, and that will go a long way that you guys should be on the lookout for is Stafford using play action in this game? 4 out of his 5 passing touchdowns against Seattle came off of play action. So it's vital for them to continue to utilize play action here. Will they get back to it? I kind of think that they will, because they should have seen the success. Maybe they decided to play a little bit left-handed against the Chicago Bears to try to make Seattle think that they were going to be going more 11 personnel without play action. Now they're going to swing back heavily to 13 using play action against the Seahawks. But I don't know. I mean, you need to win that game against the Chicago Bears, or the game against Seattle doesn't even matter because you're not the one who's playing in it. So why play left-handed against the Bears? That's why that whole game plan with the pass heaviness against a bad run defense, when the run game was actually working for you and you're the best rushing offense in the NFL, was so puzzling to me, and I didn't understand it whatsoever. And I'm really confused now to see what we're going to get out of Sean McVay heading into this game. Part of my general concern is this Rams team sort of running on steam? Like, are they running out of their momentum at this point in time? Do they really have the ability to go on the road and win yet another game against a far more rested team, playing at home with the crowd noise supporting them in just the better environment? It's a lot of that is going to factor into this. And I thought the play calling of Sean McVay left a lot to be desired. And I don't think that's going to, his split-second decision-making on the road in that hostile environment is going to be vital. He has to figure out what he's going to do ahead of time. It's hard to collect yourself and to call plays in that type of high-stress environment where you know a bad play could send you packing. A good play might help you go to the Super Bowl. It's a lot of pressure. Short time frame to call the right plays. I'm just now worried a little bit about what Sean McVay is going to do in that high pressure situation, even though he's one of the best coaches that we have in the NFL. Another key to this game is going to be Matthew Stafford and the ability for him to get rid of the football before he gets pressured. This is a remarkable statistic pulled by Rich Hribar. Stafford was not sacked at all in the 2 games against the Seattle Seahawks, if you can believe that. I mean, this is a high pressure team that gets after everybody. Stafford did not take a single sack and was hit only 7 times on 79 dropbacks against the Seattle Seahawks. Now, he had big splits with or without pressure. When he was pressured, Stafford was just 3 of 11. That's 27% completions. He averaged 1.7 yards per attempt. That was in the first matchup. In the second matchup, he still only completed 9 of 21 passes, which is 43%, and averaged only 6.5 yards per attempt. But when he was kept clean and he threw the football, in the first meeting, he averaged 71% completions, 12 of 17, and threw 2 touchdowns. And in the second meeting, he averaged 71% completions yet again, 20 of 28, averaged 11.4 yards per attempt, and also threw 2 touchdowns. So a key to this game is going to be keeping Matthew Stafford clean. Have they been using less play action and more 11 personnel shotgun so that Matthew Stafford can get rid of the football quickly? Are they worried that from shotgun, he's not going to be able to get rid of the football without being pressured? And all of these things are going through their minds, and as they try to figure out a game plan to attack the Seattle Seahawks defense. And speaking of attack, what is the coverage going to be for Mike Macdonald? In the first game, Matthew Stafford faced man coverage on 39% of his dropbacks. In the second game, the game Stafford was a lot better, he faced man coverage in only 18% of dropbacks. So Mike Macdonald used a lot more Maye in the first meeting than the second meeting. Stafford was a lot better in the second meeting. So it shows that if you look at the overall splits, when Stafford faced man coverage, he averaged only 2.7 yards per attempt and completed just 50% of his passes. When Stafford faced zone coverage from the Seahawks, he averaged 11.4 yards per attempt and completed 63% of his passes. Might we see a lot more man coverage this time around, which is something we didn't see in the second meeting in Seattle? Will they return to more man coverage against Matthew Stafford? And could that cause problems for him from a passing perspective? As you can see, there's a lot of questions surrounding this game, which you would think this game has more answers. And on the surface, it does, as it relates to two teams that meet twice a year, that don't have a lot of changes from their meetings. Both their quarterbacks are still there. Very different than the Patriots versus the Broncos. But this game still, the way that McVay has been calling plays, and then the way the defensive-minded head coach of Mike Macdonald has been calling plays on his side of the ball, really, I think that's what's so fascinating about this game is the strategies each are going to deploy for this particular conference championship with a trip to the Super Bowl on the line. Sam Darnold has really struggled against Shula, the defensive coordinator for the LA Rams. In 4 games against the Rams with Chris Shula calling plays, Darnold has thrown 7 interceptions and has taken 16 sacks and has negative EPA per dropback in each of the most recent 3 games. So that's going to be an issue. The other issue is going to be how healthy are their tackles, because the Seahawks are dealing with injuries to their tackles. How much are they going to lean into Kenneth Walker because now they are down Zach Charbonnet? Are they going to run Kenneth Walker, whose rushing attempts number is at 19.5? Are they going to run him 25, 29 rushing attempts if they can? Are they going to try to spread that around because they don't believe Kenneth Walker can take on such a heavy, devoted workload? There are questions as it relates to that. It seems like the Rams are a little bit healthier than the Seahawks right now, but the Seahawks have so many other advantages. It's going to make for an outstanding game to close out the conference championship weekend. In the AFC Championship game between the New England Patriots and the Denver Broncos, I am so fascinated to see what Jarrett Stidham is actually going to do on the field. But one thing we know for certain, this is an outstanding opportunity for Sean Payton to virtually flex his ego in front of the world and show how great of a play caller and offensive mind he is. And there's no doubt in my mind that he is going to try to be super creative. I mean, he has carte blanche to basically do whatever he wants. If the Denver Broncos lose this game, he didn't make it to the Super Bowl, even though he made it to the AFC Championship, because his hand-picked quarterback, Bo Nix, was injured and couldn't get there. And thus, Jarrett Stidham wasn't able, career backup, wasn't able to get him to the Super Bowl. But if Sean Payton's able to come in here and try to figure out a way to maximize Jarrett Stidham and get the Denver Broncos to the Super Bowl by upsetting the New England Patriots, I mean, that's going to be stamped on his lifetime resume as an accomplishment most people did not think possible. And it's going to be a huge look for him, and he knows it. And so he's going to try to pull out all of the stops. He already came out and said for this game that he intends to let Jarrett Stidham rip it. And that basically means to me that they're going to lean still into their higher pass rate, which they've been using all season long with Bo Nix. And if you look at Jarrett Stidham, he has had success throwing the football at times. He's a little bit more of a gunslinger, an aggressive player, downfield attacker as compared to Bo Nix. But one of the things that Sean Payton had a lot of success in doing with Bo Nix was figuring out ways to reduce turnovers. And Sean Payton was so focused on reducing negative plays overall that he came up with his own formula. And it's part of the reason why he drafted Bo Nix in the first place. They looked at how many times a quarterback took sacks, how many times he threw an interception, how many times he fumbled the ball, did a percentage of his total dropbacks to figure out which quarterbacks had the fewest negative plays. And Sean Payton loved that. And that's where it's going to be really interesting. How does he decide to coach Jarrett Stidham in this game? They're going up against a very good pass rush, which we'll talk about in a minute, from the New England Patriots, who does like to blitz at a fairly high rate. Jarrett Stidham is dropping back to pass, and he likes to push the ball down the field a little bit more. But if that pass rush is getting there, is he going to be able to still throw the football under pressure? We saw that's exactly the problem that happened with CJ Stroud last week. How many times did we have to watch CJ Stroud, as a pass rusher was bearing down on him, throw the football at the last split second right before getting clobbered, where the ball either got deflected or the ball was a terribly misdirected pass in general that was either tipped or intercepted outright by the New England Patriots? There is no way, shape, or form that Sean Payton is going to be okay with that whatsoever. And so as a result, they're going to have to figure out other avenues for Jarrett Stidham to get rid of the ball a little bit more underneath, or just like Bo Nix, encourage him to use his legs. If there's pressure, get out of there with your legs. Live to play another down. Do not, but more than anything, you can't throw an interception, and we don't want you taking a sack. So if those are the two priorities for Sean Payton, then I think Jarrett Stidham will look a little bit different this game than we've seen him in some of his games in the past, where he was coming out and kind of gunslinging mentality like he played against the with the Las Vegas Raiders in that game that's getting circulated against the San Francisco 49ers. So that's going to be an interesting aspect to this game. As it relates to pass protection for Jarrett Stidham, the Denver Broncos have one of the best pass blocking offensive lines in the NFL. They have had success. They are going to be working with a center who hasn't played for a little while. Their starting center is returning for this game. May not be quite 100%, but it's needed because they just lost the center last week who was filling in for him. But if you look at this New England Patriots team, a constant theme for them is strength of opponent that they have played. And yes, this pass rush has looked great, especially in the postseason, but they haven't played any good offensive lines. We're going to run through a listing of the offensive lines from a pass block win rate perspective that this New England Patriots defense has gone up against. Last week, they played number 30, Houston Texans. So obviously, their own pass rush is going to look good against the third worst, aka number 30 ranked pass block win rate offensive line. The week before that, played number 32, LA Chargers. The week before that, number 24, Miami Dolphins. The week before that, number 26, New York Jets. So for a month, they've played bottom 10 pass block win rate offensive lines. Prior to that, they also played like week 12 and week 11. They played the Bengals, number 28, and the Jets, number 26. The two teams that they played who have decent pass blocking offensive lines were the Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens. In that week 16 game against the Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson was injured with 2 minutes remaining in the first half, did not return to the game. Tyler Huntley took over, but before he left, Lamar Jackson was 7 of 10 for 10.1 yards per attempt and took 0 sacks. Baltimore ultimately lost that game, but they were leading over the New England Patriots 24-13 early in the fourth quarter before Tyler Huntley surrendered the lead and New England came back to win 28-24 rather. Versus the Buffalo Bills the week before that in week 15, Josh Allen put up a modest 193 yards, so nothing spectacular, but did throw for 3 touchdowns. And Buffalo was able to put up 35 points on the scoreboard and win 35-31 against the New England Patriots. On the same side of the football here, we do know that the New England Patriots run defense not only is great, especially with Milton Williams on the field, but has been tested a little bit. And we saw some struggles for the run game of the Denver Broncos. So what's going to be fascinating to me to watch in this game is how much does Sean Payton lean on that run game? Normally with an inexperienced quarterback, you're going to want to lean on the run game a little bit more. But in this particular case, that might not be quite as possible from a rushing perspective because the Patriots have such a good rushing attack. Would Sean Payton be so dumb as to try the Houston Texans approach that they used last week, which is, if we don't run on 1st and 10, we're not going to have a chance to run. So let's just run on 1st and 10. What happens? They get stuffed, and they constantly are setting up CJ Stroud in 2nd and 9. Literally every single series with CJ Stroud in 2nd and super long. And so the defense knows you're definitely passing at that point in time. Defense can pin their ears back. It's very difficult on a quarterback when he's always playing well behind the sticks, starting with 2nd down and then continuing into 3rd down. but that's what happens when you run on first down for nothing. How creative can Sean Payton get if the run game's not successful to not continuing to run the ball on first down, but still being able to utilize a high efficiency passing attack if possible with a young quarterback? That's going to go a long way to determining how successful this Denver Broncos offense is. On the other side of the ball, when New England has it, I think this game is going to be decided by how successful Drake Maye performs in this spot. Drake Maye going up against this Denver Broncos pass defense, which is great, but also which has played an easy schedule. Both of these teams, from a pass defense perspective, have not really gone up against the best quarterbacks. Drake Maye, though, has really struggled from a pressure perspective, and everybody's going to struggle against the Houston Texans to a degree. Their defense is absolutely elite. But let's just look at full season stats for Drake Maye. He's taken sacks on 9.4% of his dropbacks, which is 29th in the league. He's taken a sack on 27% of his pressures, which is 30th in the league. He took 5 sacks and fumbled the ball twice against the Chargers in the wild card round. He took another 5 sacks and fumbled the ball 4 times against the Texans in the divisional round. That obviously cannot happen here if the New England Patriots want to go on the road and win in Denver, Jarrett Stidham at quarterback or not. Drake Maye is averaging 2.9 seconds from snap to throw, which is 27th in the league. Quite a long time from snap to throw. 36% of his passes come within 2.5 seconds of the snap, which is 30th in the league. Not a high rate of passes come within 2.5 seconds. But here's the thing. When he's gotten rid of the ball within 2.5 seconds so far this postseason, he's connected on 22 of 32 passes. That's 69%, averaging 7.7 yards per attempt with 3 touchdowns and no interceptions. When he has held the ball longer than 2.5 seconds this postseason, he is 11 of 24. That's 46%, averaging 8.3 yards per attempt with 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, and 7 sacks with 3 fumbles. So Drake Maye's got to figure out a better strategy to get rid of the football quicker, and that's got to be something that they work on here on the road against this Denver Broncos pass rush with their offensive coordinator to try to figure out a better strategy here. Denver has a 17% sack rate when the opposing quarterback holds the football longer than 2.5 seconds. That's the second highest sack rate in the NFL. And they're allowing just 46% completions on those passes, which is the best in the NFL. So Drake Maye holds onto the ball too long. He is much better when he gets rid of it quicker. He's going up against a defense that is the best in the NFL at completion rate and second best in the NFL at sack rate when a quarterback holds onto the football for more than 2.5 seconds. So pay close attention in this game to how long Drake Maye is holding on to the football. That could go a long way to determining how much success the New England Patriots have when they have the football. So coupling all things together here and just big picture zoom out, this game, to me at least, is going to be far more entertaining than I think what a lot of people assume. They assume we're going to see a blowout here by the New England Patriots. I think the game does have a chance to be a little bit more compelling, and it's going to come down to how well Sean Payton manages Jarrett Stidham and this offense against this New England Patriots defense. We'll know right away what strategy he has. Obviously, the defense of the Denver Broncos can win a game for them late if they need to get a takeaway, turnover, sack, force a punt to try to give Jarrett Stidham one extra opportunity to get back into the game. That's exactly the way that this game potentially could play out. Denver's defense has got to step up and play a great game. But the reality is they don't have very much to lose here. I do think if they're being fed the information about the point spread changing, and they probably would have been favored by, a point or so if Bo Nix was there, and now they're underdogs of 4.5 to 5 points. That has to be a little bit insulting for them to think, hey, nobody trusts in us just because we lost Bo Nix. Like, I don't know about you guys, but watching Bo Nix this year, I don't think that he's playing elite quarterback play whatsoever. He's definitely making timely plays with his legs as well as at times with his arm, but there wasn't anything here that screamed Denver has no shot without Bo Nix. They couldn't possibly win a game without Bo Nix, but the market movement is sort of indicating, and the way that the line was adjusted, that they don't really have a legitimate shot, that Bo Nix is massively better than Jarrett Stidham. Let's find out on Sunday if that's actually the case. I can't wait to watch this one. If you've been riding with my best bet of the week this season, you know that we've been on fire this year. I've gone an incredible 15-3 record from the regular season into the playoffs, and I've given you back-to-back winners to start out the playoffs. I have been undefeated in my best bets of the week for clients since December 1st, and I just released my best bet for conference championship weekend. And I want to give you a great deal to get on board and win with us this weekend and grab this best bet. So right now, you can get complete access to all of my conference championship betting recommendations, including my best bet, for just $25. That's right. This will get you the best bet of the week, which is 15-3 this year. All of my elevated props, sides, totals, and more for conference championships. Elevated props are a perfect 4-0 so far this playoffs, and they are 36-12. That's 75% so far this season. A $100 bettor has won $12,580 following my betting recommendations since the beginning of the season. You do not want to miss out on the conference championship plays. So join today for just $25. That's incredible. Go to sharp.football or click the link in the description of the show to claim this offer. We will be releasing more plays to clients soon, so get on board now. Now joining us is Rich Hribar, loyal member of the Sharp Prop Squad and our fantasy football guru over at Sharp Football Analysis. You can find Rich's in-depth previews of both the NFC and the AFC championship game written up and published over at Sharp Football Analysis, in addition to DFS analysis later this week. And Rich, we're going to get started. We've got a couple of your favorite prop looks this week, and we're going to get started in that NFC championship game where you've got Kyren Williams, the running back for the LA Rams, taking on a little bit more of a larger role last week against the Chicago Bears, and they're going up against the Seattle Seahawks, a very stingy run defense up in the Pacific Northwest. And you're looking at Kyren Williams receiving yards. As we look at the screen here, we could see that this number is right around 11.5 to 12.5. There's definitely several 11.5s out there. So we're going to take advantage of those because you like the over. So we're going to go over 11.5 receiving yards for Kyren Williams here against the Seattle Seahawks. Talk to us about why you like this one.
Yeah, this is a number that Kyren himself has hit in 6 of his past 7 games. The Seahawks allow the 6th most receiving yards per game to opposing running backs. 21 different running backs have hit this number against Seattle this season. It's not a super large number. And in the playoffs last week, we saw Kyren have a larger workload gap over Blake Corum, 25 touches to 6. And I believe that happens because anytime the Rams have been pushed to throw the football or when the chips are kind of down and they're trailing, we see Kyren Williams play more snaps than Blake Corum. The Rams have run the ball 47% of the time on Blake Corum snaps, but on Kyren Williams snaps, they've only run the ball 38% of the time. So he's in on these passing downs, and we believe that they're going to have to throw here as a road dog. One thing we can likely bet on is Matthew Stafford throwing the football a lot. In 9 career postseason games with the Rams, he's thrown the ball 40 times or more in 5 of those games. He's thrown the ball 36 times or more in 7 of those games. And Seattle's been so dominant against wide receivers that it pushes some targets to the middle of the field to these tight ends and running backs. So looking at Kyren Williams here to clear this number, this is one I'd probably ladder to 20, 25 plus, depending, where you have those like weird 5s in some of those alt lines, but definitely looking for Kyren Williams to be active as a pass catcher here in this game.
And there's other factors here at play as well. Obviously, if the Rams are going to be trailing in this game, which they're the underdog at the moment, and we know that those games have been very close. We know that they've been a little bit closer the past 2 games in the series because of Sam Darnold and the Seattle Seahawks turnovers. If they're a little bit more careful with the football, maybe Seattle does have a lead. We also know that the Rams have gone on the road the last 2 weeks as favorite. And even in those games have been neck and neck. So now that they're actually the underdogs, maybe they're just not capable of living up to odds makers' expectations as they're dragging here on a 3rd consecutive road game. Now, the other interesting element to this one, if you're leaning a little bit towards maybe this Kyren Williams receiving yards over, might be that some receiving yards aren't going to be going to some other players. And so we've got another player in the very same game, Davante Adams, and you like an under on his receiving yards. And as we look at the board right now, we can see that Davante Adams is at 49.5 right now. You've got it at multiple spots. Novig, FanDuel, Circa's got 49.5 as well. So multiple spots have the 49.5 still. So go grab that 49.5, not the 47.5. What makes you a little bit leery of Davante Adams hitting 50 plus receiving yards in this one?
Yeah, we've seen Adams. He's had his fewest receiving yards per game since 2015. He's been kind of building the plane out of the touchdown production that he's had. And, never has that been a more display when these teams met in week 11. Remember, Adams did not play in the week 16 game, but in the week 11 matchup, he caught 1 of 8 targets for 1 yard, which was a 1-yard touchdown. What we like about the under here is that Adams plays 87% of his snaps out wide, where Seattle has been the most dominant defense against wide receivers this season. Against outside receivers, they have allowed the fewest yards per target, 5.9 yards per target. Their second in catch rate allowed, 54.6%. And then when you look at just top down, how good Seattle's against wide receivers, over their past 10 games, they've only allowed 3 wide receivers to reach 50 yards in a game. 2 of those are Puka Nacua. So Puka could be fine. Don't think this is to be pulling away from him. But yeah, so it's like you add all these up, it says like, all right, we got a little correlated here. Some stuff goes to Kyren. It gets pulled away from Adams based on the matchup. I think another way to play this too is just a bonus, because I only have 2 this week, is if this number drops too far, if you can't get the number you want, his longest catch is also around 19.5 in a lot of places. And Seattle's only allowed 7 catches of 20 or more yards to wide receivers over their past 10 games. And 4 of those are to Nacua. So it's another way to play through this. If this number gets like too bad for you, or you're not comfortable with it, you can play for that longest reception under as well.
And the other thing I saw as we were building our prize picks card for our other show that published earlier today, hopefully you guys can go check that out. The other aspect is prize picks has 20.5 longest reception for Davante Adams. So these correlated angles, as we get to fewer and fewer games, sometimes we're going to have some prop looks in the same game that are correlated, like this one is, where it's, look, if you think all the Rams receivers have a lot of yards, you might be better off just betting Matthew Stafford passing yards as opposed to betting all of those guys. But if you think one might have more and the other has less, that's a nice correlated parlay that you could combine into something like a prize picks and build a lineup that has some of that correlation, or go play it over at FanDuel, DK, etc. So great looks as usual. Rich, is going to be a fun couple of weeks. We're going to be back. You're going to be doing some shows with us in the bye week between the Super Bowl, where we have the extra week off. And then we're going to be coming back with a couple of really fun episodes to close out the regular, close out the playoffs and the season, the 2025 NFL season with us. Always look forward to those spectacular shows that we put together at the end of the year. And I know all of you guys as viewers do as well, because what we will be doing is we'll be bringing Rich and Ray on in more of an analyst role as we break down both sides of the ball for the Super Bowl. So while we're going to be getting some props still from Rich for the Super Bowl, we're going to be getting more of his excellent analysis about how the game breaks down on both sides of the ball. It's going to be a ton of fun to do those shows after we put in all the work and do all the research and get our write-ups ready to roll. So that being said, Rich, good luck this weekend. Enjoy the games, and we'll talk to you soon.
Good luck, everyone.
I've mentioned many times on the show this season, we've partnered with Novig, America's #1 sports prediction market, to give you an exclusive opportunity to try out their platform. They're offered in many states that sportsbooks are not allowed, including Texas, Florida, Georgia, and more. Right now, you can get a purchase match of up to $100 with code WARREN. Just click the Novig link in the description of the show below to get your $100 match when you open a new account. And don't forget, comment below who you think will score the first touchdown in the Rams-Seahawks game on Sunday night for a chance to win an extra $100. All right, now joining me is our NFL referee expert, Joe Gibbs. You know and love Joe's work over at Chart Football Analysis, where he writes a weekly article that breaks down all of the refs, their trends and tendencies. It's over at Chart Football Analysis. You can read up on that. But Joe is going to join us right now and break down both of these AFC and NFC championship games as we try to determine a winner that's going to be heading into the Super Bowl matchup. But before we get to that point, and we also already know who the referee is going to be in the Super Bowl, they announced that one already, so we just have to wait to figure out which teams are going to be there. Joe, you've studied and broken down the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, the wild card and the divisional round. And you have some interesting thoughts on some of the tendencies that you've seen out of these two rounds of the postseason and how things are getting called a little bit differently than they have been in the regular season and how it's actually impacted some of the outcomes of these games. Why don't you break down offensive holding and anything else that you got for us before we start breaking down each of the championship games?
Yeah, so penalties per game are down. Not unusual. That happens every year like clockwork. The wildcard round, 9 penalties per game. Divisional round, just 6 penalties per game on average. Compare that to the regular season, which was 12.7. But it's the offensive holding stuff that we really want to zero in on here. So this happens every year like clockwork. Offensive holding penalties decline as we go into the postseason. The NFL wants an aesthetically pleasing contest for a wider audience, more casual fans. The best way to achieve that, have less offensive holding penalties. And so that's what happens. So I broke it down from 2021 to 2024, so a 4-season sample size. The regular season average in those seasons was 2.3 per game offensive holdings. It dropped down to 1.4 in those 4 postseasons, 52-game sample size. So that's a 39% decline over those 4 years. 2025, 2.47 offensive holding penalties per game in the regular season. That's dipped to 0.8 per game in the postseason, 10-game sample size. So that's a 67% drop in offensive holding penalties. There was some notable no calls last week. The Josh Allen one, or the Buffalo one on the Josh Allen pass in the end zone against Denver. Romo and Nance both made mention of that one, and that really stood out. But you're going to continue to see this, I think. Again, the NFL sends out a memo to the officials, try not to call it, and the numbers back that up. So expect to see a continuation of offensive holding penalties being let go this weekend.
And it's definitely helped some of the scoring as we have seen some of these games going over the posted total. Let's talk about the first game that we're going to watch, Joe, the AFC Championship game. We've got the visiting New England Patriots coming into Denver, taking on the Denver Broncos. Right now, if we look at the spread on that game, the total is sitting right around 42.5, which has been bet up from the open. Right now, the New England Patriots are the favorite by 4.5 points at most spots. There are a couple of 5s out there still, but the line has dropped a little bit. Alex Kemp is on this game, Joe, and you have some fascinating analysis to share with people about Alex Kemp and some of his trends, particularly over the last couple of years, and how he has favored the favorite, so to speak, and the impact of that, and then other things that you think are going to happen as it relates to Alex Kemp being on this call.
Yeah, so to your point, as far as the favorites in Alex Kemp officiated contests, this goes back to the start of the 2024 season, so 34-game sample size at this point. Favorites, 31-3 straight up, 28-6 against the spread, 83% in Alex Kemp games. So that's an historical run. It's something I've kept tabs on each week. It's random. Look, I'm not suggesting he's betting the favorites every week, and if he does, I'd suggest bet the underdogs every week so you get a better return on your money. It's just one of those things that's strange. I mean, but it is what it is, and I put it out there, and people seem to take their own opinions or make their own opinions of what it means. But that's the numbers: 31-3 straight up, 28-6 against the spread for the favorites. So if you like the Patriots this week, I mean, you got that going for you. The Broncos themselves, and
the other thing, not to interrupt, but just to share with people, Joe, like no other referee is anywhere close to these results in terms of the favorites. Like no other referee is. I think the next best referee from an ATS perspective is at 61%. Kemp is at above 80%, as you've indicated. Road teams I'm seeing here, road favorites are 10-1 straight up, 9-2 ATS, both by far the best marks of any referee over the last 2 years. So from a numerical perspective, it sounds high, but from a context perspective, baking in how he is compared to the rest of the league and their refs, he's definitely just much higher than any other ref.
Oh, it's incredible. And in fact, if I wanted to, Warren, I just started at 2024. I could go back into the 2023 season, and those numbers would get even larger. It's something like 36-3 straight up, and like 31-8 against the. I can't remember, but it's a lot. It's a lot. So, yeah, keep that in mind this weekend. The Broncos, however, are 4-0 at home in Alex Kemp officiated contests, including 3-0 in the Sean Payton era. So they got that going for them. Home teams in the playoffs are 4-1 with Alex Kemp. So, you got some offsetting angles here for both sides. As far as Kemp, the way he officiates the game, he ranks 5th for offensive holding penalties. He actually ranked number 1 last year. And there's 2 members of the Alex Moore crew on his crew this weekend. And they ranked 2nd for offensive holding. So you've got that combination of Moore and Kemp in the trenches there. But as we spoke about prior to talking about this game, are they going to call it? So history suggests that they won't. But those are the numbers. The teams themselves, the Broncos and the Patriots, ranked 2nd and 3rd, respectively, for offensive pass interference. This crew doesn't have a history of calling it, but these teams have a history of committing it. So we'll see. Those are impact penalties. Face mask penalties. This is a random one too. No referee crew has called more face mask penalties since the start of 2022 than Alex Kemp led referees. So, and then the aforementioned Alex Moore crew, they ranked number 1 this season calling face masks, and then you got Kemp. So the Patriots are the number 1 penalized team for face mask penalties. Very random, but I figured I'd put it out there because those penalties have gone up this season in relation to what they have been in previous years. So, and this is a crew head referee with some members of other referee crews that are predisposed to looking for that penalty. So keep that in mind. Those are a few numbers there. The game itself, I wrote up about this during the week. I like Denver plus the 5. I don't think it's even 5 anymore. It's a one-off situation for them with a backup quarterback. Maybe that gives them a little bit of an edge as far as the surprise factor with Stidham. They're at home. They've got the best home field advantage, in my opinion, this year. But, it should be a lower scoring game, and catching that many points in what could be, 23-19, 21-16 type game, I'd lean to the home dog here.
It's going to be a fun game. I know some people aren't as excited to watch this game. I think it's going to be fascinating to see Sean Payton. This guy's ego barely fits into the city of Denver, and just what he tries to get out of Stidham with really nothing to lose. I mean, he's got carte blanche to do pretty much whatever he wants because there's a very good chance they're going to lose this game. So you might as well try something. But if he is able to win this game in an upset, starting Jarrett Stidham, and takes Jarrett Stidham to the Super Bowl, I mean, that goes down in history for one of the best kind of coaching jobs that a coach has done. And Sean Payton wants to be remembered for everything that he can be remembered for. So should be a fun game to watch the outcome of. The next game in the NFC, we've got the LA Rams, another road game. They never seem to play at home anymore. Traveling up to Seattle to take on the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle is favored by 2.5 points, basically across the board, and the total is sitting at 46.5. This total has ticked down a little bit. There are still a couple of 47s out there, but for the most part, it's 46.5 at the point of recording this. Clay Martin is on the call for this one, Joe. So talk to us a little bit about what Clay Martin brings to the table here.
Yeah, so the Rams are road warriors going into this game, and actually they're road warriors courtesy of the previous game at Seattle when Brad Allen made 2 really bad calls against the Rams that ultimately led to Seattle getting the number 1 seed and the Rams getting the 6th seed or the 5th seed, and that's how they've taken this path back to the scene of the crime on Sunday. So Clay Martin, divisional home teams in his career, 20-27 straight up, 16-31 against the spread, just 34%. The Rams themselves, 7-0 in Clay Martin officiated contests. 3 of those games were on the road versus divisional opponents, including Seattle, 2 at San Francisco as well. So Rams have done very well with Martin. Home playoff teams, however, are 5-0 straight up with Clay Martin, but just 2-1 against the spread. So a little bit for both teams there, but the Rams are very comfortable when he officiates their games. His crew tends to focus more on the offensive side of the ball, and the best way to combat that is have a very disciplined offense, and the Rams do have that with McVay. So it makes sense that they've done reasonably well with him, and they're a good team. They're going to win the majority of the games anyway. It just happens to be that they've won all of them with Martin officiating. Areas of focus, number 1 for legal formation, number 3 for offensive holding. And again, this crew has 2 members of the Alex Moore crew, who I mentioned in the other game. They're on this as well. So Alex Moore's crew actually has 4 members on 2 different games. So they also focus on offensive holding. But to my point earlier, they haven't really called it in the playoffs. But I did look. Clay Martin's 5 postseason contests as a head referee, his offensive holding numbers actually went up versus what he called in that particular year. So he's the outlier in this trend where offensive holding dips in the playoffs. They've actually spiked when he officiates. Now, I have a hard time believing it's going to happen again this weekend, but those are the numbers, and I'm just putting them out there. So if there's a game where they're going to actually focus on it, this would be the game with Clay Martin in charge. That's really all I've got as far as the game, as far as the officiating. I think they're going to look to let him play. Do they call offensive holding or do they not? That's really the big question to me. I don't think they do, but we'll find out. As far as the teams themselves, I mean, I've been bullish on the Rams all season. They kind of got, I'd say, robbed last time with the NFL replay on the 2-point conversion and then the ineligible man downfield call on a touchdown that wiped 4 points off the board. So I lean to the Rams here. These two teams have played down to the wire games decided by a total of 3 points in the 2 contests. So the Rams catching 2.5 is the way I'm looking at the game. And what should be another down to the wire contest, and it could be decided by who knows with this. Who knows what's going to happen, but I lean to the Rams in this one.
I know this is a super random question. You might not have the answer at the tip of your tongue, especially with these crews being mixed in this game, but I'm very curious from a special teams perspective. We know how Rashid Shaheed got the Seahawks back into the last game against the Rams with a return kick, was able to set off their last playoff game last week by scoring the opening touchdown of the game on special teams. Is this crew, Clay Martin or anybody that you're aware of, like predisposed to calling a few more penalties on special teams, or do they generally try to hold off on those? Or those down in the postseason as well? Any insight into special teams penalties? Because on that penalty, on the Rashid Shaheed return, there actually was a flag thrown, but it wasn't for holding, which most typically they are. So it didn't bring the kick back, and the touchdown stood in the game last week.
Yeah, special teams penalties are down in the playoffs big time from the regular season averages. So I expect that to continue. Martin himself didn't make a major emphasis of special teams penalties. And the Alex Moore crew, who has 2 members on it, they did. So something's got to give in that respect. But at the end of the day, it's still Clay Martin's crew, and he, in theory, dictates how he wants the game to be called. So I would expect them to not be calling too many special teams penalties if the form we've seen so far to this point, holds up this weekend. So I actually like the over in the game, although the money's coming in on the under. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I would look to, if I'm the Seahawks, I would be trying to gain every edge possible, knowing we've got this special hired gun returner in Rashid Shaheed, who's made a big difference in some of our biggest games. And knowing the way that Seahawks team can really kind of snowball on you and cascade. We saw it in the Super Bowl against Peyton Manning. We saw it last week and in some of their other games, where if they can get a lead and force the opponent to be a little bit more desperate offensively and a little bit more predictable offensively, then that defense can get just so ball hockey and take the ball away, return it for scores, and then before you know it, the lead is double for the Seattle Seahawks. So very important for the Rams. If I'm the Rams, I'm not even giving them a chance to return anything. I'm not even letting that enter the realm of possibility of impacting the outcome of this game. But certainly if the refs are going to call it very infrequently holding on these return touchdowns, I'm going to be coaching up my guys to be a little bit more aggressive on that front. Joe, great stuff as always. We're going to be talking to you next week because we already know that Sean Smith is going to be the head referee for the Super Bowl, and you're going to be breaking that down for us right here next week at this very time. We're also going to be talking about some of his other crew members on that crew for the Super Bowl out in San Francisco. It's always a lot of fun breaking down the Super Bowl and some of the other big games with you from a referee perspective. So I'm looking forward to that, and I know the listeners are as well. Enjoy the games this weekend. Good luck on all your bets, and we'll talk to you soon.
Great. Thanks, Warren. Good luck.
All right, now it's time for our Novig Value of the Week. And as you know, we've heard from Rich sharing some of his favorite prop looks. We've heard from Joe talking about some of the referee angles. Now it's my turn to talk about my favorite looks on the game. And as you know, we've been on fire with these segments. I'm 13-4 with the best bets on this podcast this season, 35-13 over the 2 years that I've been doing this. And that 13-4 mark does not count a win that I had 2 weeks ago in the wild card round, because I gave my best bet to subs prior to doing the show, and the line had moved a little bit, but I still shared it with you, and it still won, even though the line was worse. It also does not count, the 13-4 does not count last week, where once again, I gave my best bet to subs earlier in the week. That one won as well, but for subs, not for the podcast. And then I gave you guys an extra bonus one just to bet wasn't going to count towards the record. Khalil Shakir receptions over 5.5. That one won as well. So 2 wins on this segment the last 2 weeks that are not even being counted in the 13-4 best bets record. Now, the same thing has happened once again this week as what happened last week. And that is that my best bet of the week, I felt compelled based upon how I was viewing the market moving. We needed to go on my best bet of the week earlier in the week. So I already gave that out to subs. That line has moved a little bit, but guess what? I laddered that best bet of the week, and I still see value in both the base and all the ladders, but I don't really want to share that right now because that line has moved a little bit, and that was for subscribers. And as a reminder, you can subscribe this week for just $25. So super low barrier of entry. If you're really interested in this, just go subscribe for the conference championship week for $25. I've got another couple of bets that I think that I like as much, if not slightly more, than the best bet of the week that I already released. The reason, though, that I haven't done anything with these is because the lines aren't fully posted. The markets aren't fully made on some of these players and some of the bets that I'm looking at because of some uncertainty as it relates to injuries. So just know, if you are a subscriber or you're thinking about subscribing, that there are a couple of other bets that I have that are going to be coming out that haven't been posted yet. So obviously the lines haven't moved at all. And I've got my screens up. I'm staring and I'm waiting for them to be fully populated at the majority of sports books before we pounce. We'll be pouncing early as soon as those numbers are available to subscribers. So be on the lookout for that. So I like our card this week. I think hopefully those lines come out where I think that they will. We'll have another couple of very strong bets. We've already got one that I truly, truly love. For this segment, though, I don't want to leave you with nothing. Again, I encourage you. It's only $25. Go check out the championship package. Go to sharp.football and get on board. Super low barrier of entry, especially if you've been betting our stuff all season long. You've definitely made a lot more than $25. You can afford to go and grab our best bets this week. But one thing, I want to throw out some trivia for you guys. Think about a player in your mind. Since December, this player, he's going to be playing in one of these 2 games. So he's on one of these 4 remaining teams. He has nearly 50 more rushing yards than receiving yards, but he is not a running back or a fullback. Think about that. I'll give you one more hint. He's a wide receiver, but since December 15th, same time span, so just over a month, he only has 10 receiving yards. Do you know who we're talking about? We're talking about Rashid Shaheed. Rashid Shaheed is the answer to the trivia question. Nearly 50 more rushing yards than receiving yards since December 15th. Only 10 total receiving yards. And we're looking at a team in the Seattle Seahawks who lost their running back number 2, Zach Charbonnet, to an ACL, and they've called up, a fullback. They've called up George Holani. They're trying to supplement a little bit Kenneth Walker, but certainly Kenneth Walker is now going to be RB1, getting all of the bell cow workload without Zach Charbonnet. There's probably more of a likelihood that they're going to need to work in a little bit more Rashid Shaheed into the run game. 2 out of the last 4 games, he's done nothing in the run game, but the other 2 games, he's had 27 and over 30 rushing yards. And if you look at the odds screen right now, one thing, this is over at Odds Jam. And so what you can do over at Odds Jam, you can click the link in the description below and try this out for 2 weeks, get it basically through the Super Bowl. If you try it out now for free, totally for free, you search, you type in rushing yards here, click rushing yards, and you start typing in the player's name here, and it'll filter for Rashid Shaheed. You see that his rushing yards line is 4.5 at most spots. It's a half a yard, but juiced very high at -145 over at MGM. But you can hit this little down arrow to show the alt lines. And when you do that, you can see some of the alt lines, such as 10 plus rushing yards is +140 right now. 20 plus rushing yards is +550. 30 plus rushing yards is 12 to 1. You could find other sports books that aren't listed on here, like your Bet365s and other spots that have additional alt lines for Rashid Shaheed. And all I'll say is this, if they are going to need to use him a little bit more, there's no harm in throwing a little bit of pizza money on an alt or two of 15 plus, 20 plus at some serious plus money prices, because he is a speedster. They do try to get him to the edge at times. And I definitely think that there might be a necessity to use him in this game. So I'm not going to advocate this at all as some type of a best bet. Again, I've got my strongest stuff. One is with clients already. A couple more are going to be coming. The lines aren't out yet. I believe we'll have something there, but I don't know for certain. But Rashid Shaheed should be utilized a little bit more in the ground game, could be utilized a little bit more in the ground game. And I'll tell you, this isn't something I'm just thinking of spur of the moment. To clients earlier today, we did give out some Rashid Shaheed alts. And at the time, we were able to get 25 plus at 16 to 1. And we were able to get 40 plus at 50 to 1. 20 plus was plus 750. Right now, 20 plus I'm seeing is plus 550. I've seen 30 plus at, I think, 16 to 1 still. On the screen here, it's saying 12 to 1, but I've seen 30 plus at 16 to 1. So at any rate, you might want to just throw a little pizza money on it and hope that Rashid Shaheed breaks a long one. If he does, you can come back here, get our Super Bowl package, where we're going to have a ton more stuff over the next couple of weeks for everybody. And that reminds me, you got some great things cooking up for you guys for Super Bowl week, not just the week before, but the 2 weeks before. We believe we're going to be able to release at least one prop a day every single day, starting the Tuesday after the conference championship round, based upon when historically they've been opening a lot of these markets and how quickly we plan on attacking. So we're going to be looking to get out to you guys props throughout the course of the couple of weeks that lead into Super Bowl. So rather than just hitting Super Bowl Sunday with 10 props on Saturday, we're going to give you guys props throughout, spread out, giving you plenty of time to get some of the best lines that we see as we go. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully you guys decide to get involved for the Super Bowl. But for now, conference championship, that is our focus. Make sure you grab that package for $25 to get a lot of our best bets. That'll do it for the Novig value of the week. Looking at some really long shot numbers on Rashid Shaheed rushing yards. And that'll do it for the conference championship edition of the Sharp Football Analysis Show. Make sure that you guys are subscribed over on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app. We'll be back with you guys next week, breaking down early thoughts on the Super Bowl matchup very early in the week. So make sure you're subscribed and don't miss a thing. Good luck this weekend.
Right.